Chamber of Commerce's Coffee with the Port St. Lucie City Council. I'm Linda Cox, President of the Chamber, and I'm here today with Ms. Tammy Crandall of Seacoast National Bank. Tammy is our sponsor today, but Tammy also serves as an ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce and on our board of directors.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you very much. We're very proud at Seacoast to be able to sponsor this monthly event. Very happy to be a part of that. And really, this kind of goes along with the 4 promises that we meet as a bank, and that has a lot to do with being involved in our community, investing in our community, not just at events such as this, but walking in the March of Dimes or participating in the Torrey Pines Kids Race. These are just examples of many events of things that we do to invest back into our community and help with a lot of these nonprofit groups that we have in our area here.
Just look for the blue, right?
Yes, look for this, what we call the Sea of Teal. Typically, any event that you go to locally in the community, you'll see a Sea of Teal along with everything we're doing. And there are a lot of many things that we do from a volunteer basis behind the scenes as well. One of the things that we do in our bank here locally, we are a community bank, and we serve our people in the community by doing many things, making sure that we have conversations that help us understand exactly what your personal needs are, whether you're a consumer or a business. That's very important to us to make sure that we provide appropriate solutions for you. Helping you to resolve some out of the ordinary things. That's very difficult sometimes, but we do our best to make that as easy as possible for you. But I would say most importantly, we do our best to make sure that we make your banking every day simple, day-to-day simple banking, whether you choose to come through our drive-through, use some internet banking, or simply walk into one of our local branches. You have the ability to speak to a teller or to speak to one of our platform associates there in the branch. And it doesn't cost you a dime, a little bit of your time.
Right.
And that's very rare today. So those are things that we pride ourselves on. We're very proud to be a part of this community here in Port St. Lucie and St. Lucie County. And hopefully, if you haven't taken the opportunity to take a step into one of our local branches and meet any one of our wonderful team members, that you will take the opportunity to do that today.
Great. Thank you so much, Tammy. Thanks for all that Seacoast does in our community. We really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. We're very happy to.
Really do appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. I'm very happy to have today with us Councilman Ron Bowen once again. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so what's going on in the city? What do we want to talk about today?
Well, we want to talk about the good things that are going on in Port St. Lucie, but first of all, let's talk about the move that the Chamber of Commerce has incurred, and you guys did it in the middle of the night, and tell us about where you're at.
No, it wasn't in the middle of the night, trust me. It was over several days. And
Okay, you didn't lose a beat.
But anyway, the Chamber just relocated its office from St. Lucie West to Midway Road. So we're just east, or just west of 25th Street, so I like to say we're dead center in the middle of our community that we serve. So very happy to be open. It's 2937 West Midway Road. There's Drawdy Brothers Complex there. So we're on the south side of Midway Road, just west of 25th Street, east of Selvage Road. So very happy. We have a large conference room, so we're going to be able to do a lot of our committee meetings and things at that facility rather than having to go out and around the community.
That's great. I'll have to stop by with a housewarming gift for you
We're
guys.
going to do, I think we're going to do an open house at the end of this month. We're trying to figure out if we're going to do a morning event or an evening event, but we'll get that announcement out real soon.
That'd be great. To answer your question, what's going on in Port St. Lucie, a lot of exciting things, a lot of good things. First of all, at the past council meeting, we got the financial audits of the books of the city of Port St. Lucie, and financially the city is doing very well.
That's always great to hear.
Great to hear, yes. And a couple of key points, all the bills are being paid and the credit rating is high. And we're building our reserves. We're not spending our rainy day funds. So the financial end has really been a real positive thing. Also, building permits are up, especially in the residential construction. So the next mini boom's around the corner. So the city's preparing for that.
Very good.
And on the east side in District 4, things are really hopping. We had the groundbreaking yesterday at St. Lucie Medical Center for their $9.3 million expansion of their emergency room.
That's very
bringing
exciting.
100 jobs to the area, plus permanent payroll jobs too. So that and our Civic Center, Linda, 3 festivals and events the last 3 months. A Wing Fest, Seafood Festival, and St. Patrick's Day. They've been well attended, they've been free. to the public, entertainment, and a lot of fun. So,
Well, I know we have another big event at the Civic Center coming up. It's the Keep Port St. Lucie Beautiful Annual Cleanup Event.
Right.
That's the 27th of April, so
That's
that'll be
correct.
really exciting. I know the Chamber's leadership program is going to be cleaning up trash around the Civic Center, so we're really looking forward to that.
well, we're so happy to have the Chamber of Commerce as a partner with the city.
Absolutely.
And with all the good, unfortunately, we have to kind of shift gears this morning to maybe something tragic that happened the last 2 weeks. We had a young high school student on the way to school struck by a car while he was riding his bicycle, and it's a tragic loss, and it was felt a very somber mood at City Hall. But also the city had some calls from concerned citizens, Linda, and they were talking about 3 areas, and one was reflective clothing and on bicycles and on the physical person themselves. They talked about streetlights, and that's always been a controversial subject in Port St. Lucie. Either you like them or you don't.
Right.
And the third subject that came up from the public was the issue of sidewalks, city sidewalks. So we're going to talk about city sidewalks this morning. I brought 2 experts with me from City Hall, and they're going to give a presentation.
Okay.
And we're going to try to solve or clarify the 4 misconceptions people have about sidewalks in the city of Port St. Lucie. First misconception is the city doesn't care about sidewalks, and it's not a priority issue with the city. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, because the city doesn't care about sidewalks, they're really not doing anything about building sidewalks, and I haven't seen any new sidewalks in my neighborhood, so obviously the city's doing nothing. And the third misconception is that they're easy to construct. Sidewalks. I see my neighbor Joe, the driveway was cracked yesterday. They came and tore it up, reformed it, poured it. The guy's parking his car back on his new driveway today. Sidewalks aren't that complicated. They should be easy to install. And the 4th misconception, Linda, is that sidewalks are inexpensive compared to roadways, and $100,000 should buy a lot of sidewalks. So I brought 2 experts with me this morning. I brought Patricia Roebling with me this morning. She's has dual roles at the city. She's a department head of the engineering department and public works. And we brought the project coordinator, Edith Majewski, with us this morning. Welcome, ladies, and I'll turn it over to you with your presentation, and we'll have some questions and answers, Q&A afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bowen. Thank you, members of the Chamber, for having us here this morning. We appreciate it. And it's so important what we're going to talk about today, because absolutely there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, that's out there. And we really want to reach out and let everyone know what our program is, what we have done so far, what our plans are for the future, the council's plans, because sidewalks and bike paths and multi-use paths are huge to the city. Again, I'm Patricia Roebling. I play both that dual role of Public Works Director and City Engineer, and with me is Edith Majewski. And Edie is a project coordinator in our office, and she's also my sidewalk specialist. She is actually the person that heads up my sidewalk and bike path program, and we're going to get into how important her role is here in the city. I actually have a person in our department that has that role. So number one, that's, we play a lot of roles, but she's a very important person for our whole entire department. So again, Public Works, what we do in Public Works is we do all of the infrastructure in the city. Everything, not utilities, underground utilities, but we do the swale liner, the mowing, the maintenance, the roads, the resurfacing, the building of new roads, the building of pedestrian facilities. We do the landscaping, all our underground drainage. And the city of Port St. Lucie now is, just over 50 years old, and there's a lot of infrastructure to maintain with a limited budget. So as we can go into this right off the start without even getting into the presentation, I was speaking to some of you earlier, and I was saying to you that it is important to understand there's only so much of a limited budget, and we do have all of this infrastructure to constantly try to catch up with and to maintain. We have culverts that are failing because they're over 50 years old. We do have roadways that are, that we get the phone calls, my roadway's in bad shape, please come out and take a look at it and resurface it. And we have to program all of that infrastructure repair and replacement every single year and with only limited funds. So I want to get into that a little bit right off the get-go, because it's important to understand that sidewalks and bike paths and pedestrian facilities fall in the same category as the rest of that infrastructure, and it's very important to understand we have all of that to be responsible for. So with that, let's get started. We have put together a presentation today. We think it's going to be very informative. That's Edie up there, by the way, jogging. She's also my runner, too. She runs my half marathons. Okay, City of Port St. Lucie. And the city is extremely large. It's 116 square miles. And we have almost 900 miles of roadway. That's road right-of-way. That's not lane miles. That's actual road right-of-way. It's quite large. So, you know, with that, you can see that we have a ton of infrastructure to maintain. Okay, so early sidewalks. Well, the city, as you know, was developed by General Development Corporation, and basically back in the day when they first started laying out the city, they put sidewalks in actually where they would market to sell property in only those regions. So they would bring, you know, a potential buyer in, and they would go to the Club Med area. These are early Club Med sidewalks. There's some sidewalks that were put in, you know, the Sandpiper Bay Club Med, and also in some areas in the county where it's near Oroso. There were some older sidewalks in that region. So they, you know, it was about marketing and selling homes. So they'd bring people to the community, and they would look and see the infrastructure, which had curb and gutter and sidewalks and underground drainage, kind of like a, you know, a more of an urban setting. But once you ventured outside of that, which most of those people that they brought in did not do, they were in buses, you know, they say, we're going to sell you a lot in the city. Well, the lot's out in west of the turnpike, and it had at that time grass growing through the pavement, and it had swales, and I'm not bashing them to death here, but swales, no swale liner, very flat swales. They would hold water, no curb and gutter, no sidewalks, no infrastructure, no water and sewer. That was well and septic. So the marketing back then was strictly to very, very limited areas. So that's what we're dealing with the existing city. So and with that, I want to say again that the infrastructure wasn't in place. There's nothing there. They had some culverts in. There was areas that we really had to focus on, not just with the sidewalks, but with our roads and with our drainage. So then later came sidewalks with new development. Basically, St. Lucie West came in, and they programmed their development very wisely. They went in, they put sidewalks in, they put some curb and gutter, but mostly they had swale drainage as well. But they put the sidewalks in, and they put connectivity between their developments and their residential developments and their commercial communities out there, so you could actually walk to the grocery store, and not really the way the rest of the city, unfortunately, is laid out. Also, other developments that came in after that is Tradition, as you well know, out west, and Newport Isles, Tesoro, St. James Club. Those developments all put in sidewalks with their facilities. So about 2006, the city council at that time, there were some sidewalk and pedestrian accidents back in that time as well. And at that time, the council just said, we want to focus on building sidewalks, so we got to get some kind of program together to really emphasize building sidewalks, or at that time they were sidewalks or multi-use paths, and they were adamant about it, very focused. The city manager at the time had written a memo. He said, okay, let's dedicate $250,000 a year to the sidewalk program that we will plan and budget for annually to start building and plugging along at sidewalks. And so this is where we first started really the emphasis. Also the emphasis at that time as well was we created a priority list, and Edie's going to go into that in a little bit. But the priority list was interesting because she's going to explain how all of that comes about, because I know it's very important for someone to say, I want a sidewalk on my street, but there's a lot of reasons why other streets may come first. So first thing is, where's the funding for all of this stuff? Okay, we had the $250,000 that we talked about right off the get-go, and that was in place. And that money is used to build sidewalks every year, but it's also used a little bit of that funding we put towards our American Disabilities Act compliance. We did get audited for that, and we do have to put a little money for that. Like what we'll do is go out and replace flags of sidewalk that may not be ADA compliant, but most of that money's dedicated to the sidewalks unless there is an emergency situation that may happen that we need to use the money for, and we go back to council. The second thing is our capital improvement program, where anything we ever do build, we build a new road, Aroso out here when we built it, put sidewalks in, Bayshore, all those roadways. All our capital improvement programs, if you drive Becker Road, you'll see 10-foot multi-use paths on both sides. That is a huge focus, council, so we stick it in everything we do as far as new improvement. Developer agreements, anytime a developer comes in, basically we have, like we talked about, tradition. They're required to put sidewalks in, and they do so. And they put also bike lanes as well. And we also have our grant program through the Transportation Planning Organization. And Edie, I'd like you to just jump in on that because you do go to those meetings.
Thank you. We do apply for grants annually and regularly to put in sidewalks. Sidewalks are very expensive, and we will get into that further. It's not just putting down concrete, and that's what I thought before when I first moved to the city. And it's not like that. It's very intense what goes into a sidewalk project. The one thing with a grant that we have to remember, and it's really hard to get people to accept this, when I get approved for a grant that we can put in a sidewalk, it takes 3 to 5 years from the time we get approved to the time we can go to construction. And that's because the state is budgeting that money into further fiscal years. So what we have approved right now, what we're working on, some of these grants get approved in 2010 and we can't build them until 2014. But we're in the process, we're designing and we are constructing.
Right, but the important part about the grants too is she's like my bulldog, okay? Every single year she's in their face and she's saying, we want this next sidewalk on the priority list. And we are getting those sidewalks approved by the TPO. So even though they're out 3 to 5 years, it's constant, it just keeps rolling. So those 3 to 5 years keep happening. We're building sidewalks right now. We will continue every year to build sidewalks. We never stop going back, and we never stop. You would never want us to stop. Any of the council wouldn't. And we get in there and we get as much money as we possibly can, but the TPO, the Transportation Planning Organization, is made up of the county. So it's the city of Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County, and the city of Port St. Lucie, and we have to vie for our sidewalk programs that we want to get approved. Thanks, Edie. So, we're going to go through this a little further, the funding sources in the different ways. You can turn to the next slide. Okay, so our capital improvement program, what we've accomplished since this initiative, we've got a ton of roads that we've accomplished up there. You can see them all, basically. We had a lot of projects even before this time that we put our capital improvements in, but we have all of our new roads. We have Crosstown Parkway. Crosstown Parkway is wonderful. It's a linear park as well as a viable roadway, and it's wonderful to see everyone out there walking their dogs or jogging or whatever. Those are 10-foot multi-use paths are used for, and we also have bike lanes on that road right adjacent to the road, so that comes in very handy. Other projects that we have, City Center, we put in some sidewalk with our Eastern Watershed Improvement Program when we were out there doing that. And we also put a pedestrian path on Green River Parkway, which is ultimately the connection between Maine and Key West. So that was part of that program. So approximately 38 miles of sidewalks have been completed since the initiative. And that's 38 miles of sidewalk is quite a bit for the last 8 years to put in with the infrastructure that we had. And Edie, I'll let you go into the developer part.
We have developer agreements, like Patricia said earlier, with Coulter, Core Communities. They've put in money and built roads as part of Crosstown Parkway, Community Boulevard. They helped get a lot of the roads out in the southwest area. We've also revised our land code, one of the land development codes, that any new commercial building coming in is required to put sidewalks around their site. The newest one is like the Goodwill on Gatlin. If you've been out there, they have a sidewalk that goes down their side street and down the back street of that development. Since all that's taken place, we have put in about 14 miles of new sidewalks. We also have the Community Development Block Grant. This grant, there's not a lot of money in this grant. We look at smaller projects that we can develop. We've Approximately 2 miles of sidewalk have been constructed with this grant. This grant includes the design and construction of the project. We have 2 projects right now that are going with this grant. The Transportation Improvement Program grants, these grants can vary with different names, Safe Routes to School. There is the Transportation Enhancement Grant, so there's many different grants that fall under this. We have completed 11 miles of sidewalk with these grants, and these grants only include construction. The city pays 100% of the design of these projects.
Okay. And here's a map basically showing all the sidewalks in the city. We actually have a hard copy up here showing the parks, the park locations and the school locations. And so if you want to peruse that after we get done with the presentation, and it will be available on our website, Ed, right? We're going to post that on there, and so and as well as I believe this presentation. But we have right now 329 miles of sidewalk in the city, which is estimated to be about 15% coverage. Okay, so that's quite a bit that we plugged along at. And Edie, explain the sidewalk location process that we go through.
We have various staff members, the police department, the engineering department, public works, planning and zoning department, and the school board is a big factor in figuring out where should we put a sidewalk. We all sit down together. We look at, the school board does bring with them a map, and it shows where every child lives, how many children will walk to a certain school. Our biggest goal was trying to get the sidewalks around schools first, within a 2-mile radius for the kids that do walk to school. We look at the major roadways where we can put sidewalks. So we came up with a list, and we brought it to City Council to get their approval on the list. We have finished phase 1. We are almost finished with phase 2, and we do have a phase 3 priority list still out there, and we still have some projects that are unfunded, and we try every day to get funding for them. We are working, the group is going to come back together so we can work together and come up with a phase 4 priority list. We also take into consideration the phone calls I get, letters, the emails, and we look at those areas and we do put them on a list. But again, these sidewalks are ranked for safety issues and how many kids and all that, and that's how we determine which grants we go after first. And we have been denied on grants because we get them through the state, and we're in the Florida Department of Transportation, District 4. So everybody, every county in District 4 fights for the money. So sometimes we do get denied, and it's heartbreaking when you know that that road needs a sidewalk on it.
All right, so we talked, Edie hit on, what are the factors that affect us deciding where a sidewalk needs to go. So the factors is nearby schools and parks and connectivity to existing sidewalks that we have. And this map when you come up and look at this map, it's interesting because it shows you where everything is and the connectivity. Public requests, as Edie said. We have some constraints, which I'll get into a little bit. Safety and costs. So nearby schools and parks, we focus on the schools. Okay, within 2 miles of a school, they do not bus. So that's important. And I know you worked with the school board with that. That's why a school board's on our team. School board is a very integral part of our discussions concerning sidewalks. They provide a lot of information to us, and they've been very helpful. So I want to thank them for that because they've been right with us the whole entire time. Number of registered students, the bus stops. Then, of course, our location of our parks, too, because the kids want to get to the parks, and that's a biggie. And then connecting to what we have already in place as shown on the map. Public requests, we have a number of ways that the public can get a hold of us. We have our website. They can write us, they can call us. This information is on this slide. And we do get a lot of contact from the public. And in these meetings, such as we have in the HOA meetings when we go out to do those, people reach out to us all the time with requests for sidewalks, and we log them. All of them are logged, they're registered, and we keep that information when we meet with our committee. Constraints, want to talk a little bit about this. Okay, this is back into the just slap a sidewalk in. Well, again, GDC left us with a beautiful city, and it is beautiful, but it's not, it's more rural than it is urban. Nothing's underground. All of our drainage is on the surface. We, as you know, we go in and put swale liner in to help with that drainage to get it to its outfall points. But that swale gets deeper and deeper as it goes to the outfall. And you try to put a sidewalk in on top of the fact some of these homes were built on septic systems, a lot of them were, and now they're retrofitted, but that means the home is really sitting up high above the road because that was a requirement back then. It's got to be really high above the water table. So now you got a really high elevated house, you got the road down here, you got a swale in the middle, and putting it in there and meeting American Disabilities Act is sometimes it's a challenge. And we wind up having to pipe a lot of the swale. So now we're putting in that underground infrastructure. So yes, maybe it would cost X number of dollars to put in a concrete sidewalk or a bike lane, or bike path rather, for so many feet a mile, but you add those other items in there, weaving around power poles, you name it, because they're all, we have franchise agreements for our utilities, our fire hydrants, and FP&L and so forth. At the end of the day, it almost doubles the cost. And it's very difficult. And I also want to say that it's interesting, and we go out to do these sidewalks, and we will go ahead and install them, and we do have a serious amount of the public come out and say, I never wanted this in my yard. I don't want a sidewalk here. Why did you put it here? So there's also the factor that a lot of people don't want it in their front yard. They don't want it there. And that's something that we do here, believe it or not. Same with street lighting. I want to see the stars. I don't want to see a light. I don't want it. So that's another factor that comes into play. Safety, we look at the situation with safety, look at the accident reports. That's a factor, and also obstacles. We have a lot of bridges and canals and waterways in the city. We have to meander around them, so we want to make sure that's a safe condition. And speed limits is also another one. But we do focus a lot on, for our major arteries in the city that get people around, we do focus in those areas to get sidewalks in, because that's where a lot of the children and people are walking to get to those parks. Okay, costs. The cost, believe it or not, I know I said this the other night at a homeowner meeting, and they looked at me like I was crazy, but believe it or not, a 5-foot sidewalk with engineering and inspection and the cost of construction can go upwards of, well, actually around $400,000 a mile. It costs about $80 a foot to put a sidewalk in, just for a 5-foot sidewalk. And when you go to a multi-use path, which can be twice that size, now you're doubling that amount. You're basically at $800,000 a mile, because now you're actually wider and you're getting into more of the swale and more piping, and of course more concrete. So it can range from anywhere to $400,000 to $800,000 just for a mile. And we looked at asphalt. Asphalt is something that comes up once in a while that someone will ask, well, why don't you put in an asphalt sidewalk? We have asphalt sidewalks are a little cheaper. They're not much cheaper because you have to have a base material under them. But at the same time, it's very hard to meet ADA compliance, and they actually fall apart very quickly. And they're very high maintenance. So we're out there maintaining them every couple of years instead of them being in place, which is adding to the cost. So Edie, if you could go through our priority list.
This is our priority list that was adopted in 2006. And the red, all the ones in red, those are the ones that have already been completed. You can go to the next one. And this map shows our sidewalks that are in the future. We call them future. Some of them are current. The dark blue are current that we're working on. The green ones are future funded projects. We do have money for those, but for future years. The light blue are the ones that's still on the phase 3 priority list that we are still looking for funding for. Those are unfunded. And the purple ones are on the transportation enhancement program, and we're also looking for money for those. And our current sidewalks are the ones that are either under design right now or ready for construction. The ones that are ready for construction, those will start this summer. Chartwell and Village Green, those are the CDBG grants, the Community Development Block Grants, and those will be completed by July. Our future funded projects, this is just a list of the projects that, like I said, we do have money for. It's 7 miles of sidewalk. The only one I am working with DOT right now for the Del Rio sidewalk, because the limits go to from Port St. Lucie Boulevard to the most western California Boulevard, but I'm trying to push it to the end of Del Rio so we can get that whole roadway completed. These are the sidewalks that are, like I said, are on a list, and we are looking for funding for these sidewalks.
All right, so with that, we want to thank you again very much for allowing us to present today, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions of the audience.
The question is, how many schools are out there without sidewalks around them? I believe that almost every school has a sidewalk in front of it, but leading to the schools, that is what we're working on. We're still trying to get funding for all that, and like I said, that is a priority to get within a 2-mile radius, especially onto the major roadways that the children do walk on, or major bus stop areas.
In other words, there's quite a few, and to answer your question a little better visually, if you look at this map, all of those schools, the one that's next to Edie right here, all of those schools are located on this map, and you can see for yourself the ones that don't have that 2-mile radius.
What's hard with that, I mean, we can certainly work with the school board with that, but school bus stops change every year. So you might have this one patch of concrete somewhere, and it could become a safety hazard over the years if it's not maintained, and it's because it's just a little piece of concrete. So that's a hard one to really get into, but it could be something that the school board could look at.
We can, the question was about why don't we put bus stops in, that's okay, that bus stops here and there. We actually have put some bus stops in, sheltered bus stops. And unfortunately, the kids like to have a field day with that, so there's a lot of maintenance going on with that, but we have put some in, and we will continue to look at that. That is another priority that we were asked to look at, and I think, Edie, what we can do here is when you get the committee back together, let's see if the school board can maybe pinpoint locations that for sure they know are really not going to change, and we will continue to plug along at that too. But we have some in the city, throughout the city already. Okay, the question was, what is the city's policy on putting sidewalks on both sides or just one side of the street? For now, what we've been focusing on with our team is if it is putting a sidewalk in an existing area and it's not a road widening, usually we focus on one side to get the bang for the buck. At least we can get the kids down one side of the street, and because otherwise we're doubling the costs. But with any of our capital improvements, we put them on both sides of the street, and we actually are, I want to bring this up, a sidewalk, kids, when they ride bikes, they really don't want to ride on a 5-foot sidewalk because it's too small to house both people walking, pedestrians walking, and bicyclists. So that's why we keep talking about multi-use paths, because multi-use paths are 8 to 10 feet or wider so that people can pass each other. So when we look at our capital improvements, we look at not only the pedestrian sidewalk situation, but some way to get the bicyclists around as well. Okay, the question was on the east side of the city of Port St. Lucie, what is our program for putting in sidewalks and widening the roads? Okay, when I assume you mean the east side, I'm guessing you mean east of Leonard Road?
Yes.
Okay. We have...
I apologize. We're looking at Mariposa, Malaluca area, all of that area where Port St. Lucie High School.
Okay, so you're looking at Malaluca. Well, you'd be surprised and pleased to know that we are going to start construction on the sidewalk on Malaluca immediately. That's one of our programmed improvements. Edie, when does that start construction?
We just had our pre-bid meeting yesterday with the contractor, so that could be going to construction this June. And we're starting, it's a 3-phase project. We're starting at Camden.
Okay.
Camden to Berkshire, Berkshire to Green River. Those two will run concurrently with one contractor. And then we will not get the funding for Leonard to Camden until this December. So by the time that one's done, we're hoping the third phase will begin construction. The question is about a bus shelter at Gaslight at Melaleuca. That's something we can look at that. I don't know about the right-of-way out there, the property, and that's another issue. We got to look at how much room do we have to put these and where we can put them, but we can certainly look at it.
Excellent. Thank you.
And the other part I want to bring up in that region, we have Mariposa sidewalk as well that's going to construction.
Mariposa's under design.
It's under design,
It'll
but
go
it
to
will be.
construction next year.
Okay. And as far as road widenings in that region, we have widened quite a few roads. You can see Walton's been improved.
Yes.
Leonard Road now is 4 lanes. There's not a warrant at the time for any other future widenings, but we look at that every year in our capital improvement program, and we kind of watch the volumes of traffic. We don't see a need for widening of those roads, but obviously the need for the pedestrian facilities. So we're always looking at it.
Right, that's a good question, Mr. Skiles, and your question is about the making it a priority, the sidewalks, a priority in our budget process. Well, first of all, it is a priority with the council. The mayor's here this morning also, and she can attest to it. Public safety is first and foremost, and we're only constrained by the monies we have available. I think you know that. The city's, I think I explained earlier, the city's financially in good shape, and we haven't stuck our neck out for anything recently that's going to come back and bite us. And we're living within our means. We're waiting for property values to come back. And to answer your question, sure, we need more funding for sidewalks, but we also need more funding for repaving of roads. Ms. Roebling and I have talked about this in the past. 3 or 4 years ago, there was $7 million set aside for repaving of roads in the city. And the last fiscal budget, which I wasn't part of, only had $1 million in it for repaving of roads. And the city council transferred that $1 million and repaved the roads out on St. Lucie West Boulevard. So nothing's going to be repaved in the city for the rest of the year, let alone looking at sidewalks. So to answer the question is, sidewalks are right up there as a priority item, as is road repaving, but they're intensely expensive, and we need a new funding source. And we're going to have to talk about that at City Council at a future retreat about a new money, a new funding source for road repaving and sidewalks.
Okay. Well, the more good news about this, the question was, what about Port St. Lucie Boulevard from Darwin to Becker Road? Are we going to put sidewalks in? Not only are we planning for sidewalks there, but we need to widen that road as well. And the state, Florida Department of Transportation, actually is programmed some money for the city because we are limited on our budgets, which was awesome for them to do. We, of course, asked them to prioritize it. And they're undergoing what's called a project development and environmental study right now. They're going to run that study, which will allow us to see what the best options are for widening that road. Once that gets done, there's some future money out for design through the state as well, and we will continue to approach the state for construction money. So in short order, I want to say short order, it's really not short order, maybe within 5 years, we could be able to implement the construction of that program. So to put sidewalks in now, when that happens 5 years from now, would be something that we would think would be cost prohibitive for us to do. But it's on the radar screen, and it's very active. It's already moving. So that's a good positive. All right.
I wanted to thank Mrs. Patricia Roebling and Edith Majewski for their expertise, education, and information. I don't know if you had any questions, Linda,
No,
from the
I think
Chamber
they
of
did a
Commerce?
great job. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
I just want to stress, Linda, the city is concerned about the safety of the citizens.
Absolutely.
And sidewalks are a priority, and we're only limited by the amount of funding we have.
Yeah. Well, and I'm happy to hear that you're working so closely
Yeah,
with
so
the
yeah,
school
there is a-
district. I mean, because that is a critical. I know they have their own sidewalk committee as well, I believe.
Right, so we're doing something about sidewalks. It's just not fast enough for the
That's
average
right.
person.
That's right.
But thanks for having us.
Thank
and
you.
Looking forward to the next coffee with the council.
All right. I want to thank again Seacoast National Bank for being our sponsor today. And of course, I'd like to thank Silver Platter Entrees for providing the refreshments this morning. So wish everybody a great day. Thanks.